and welcome back to the podcast. And it's so nice to be doing a solo episode. You have probably noticed that I've put a lot of guest episodes out recently. And the reason for that was I really wanted you to hear from other people, their experiences and their journeys of breaking free from all this, good girl conditioning and this feeling of needing to shrink ourselves for the sake of other people and this people pleasing and masking, just to help empower and encourage you to consider what life might be like for you to live life more on your own terms rather than what is felt like the terms of other people in your life. Max has just decided to wake up, which is great, but I will try and carry on regardless. So yes, I really wanted to put the guest episodes out there for you so you hear other people's take on things and you're not just hearing about my own take on things. And it's so nice to get back to something I am so passionate about, which is talking about all this stuff, and considering the different angles, like the different psychological theory behind everything, and just going deep, I suppose, about these things, because I do feel so passionate about helping other people, not just women, others just feel truly able to accept all parts of themselves and have compassion for themselves and trust themselves and just be who you've always meant to be. And what's been, I would say, doing my head in really recently has been seeing and hearing stuff online, in the online space, sort of describing and spouting theories and techniques and strategies that people should be following in order to live a better life and stuff like that. And often, not always, often the people spouting these messages about how you should be living your life and, just say no, no's a full sentence, just set boundaries and all that stuff. So a lot of these people aren't actually experienced, trained, or qualified to talk about these things in great depth, to talk about these things in a way that actually acknowledges the true human experience of behavior, psychology, biology, emotion. And it just does me head in. I'm not going to lie. I will think, it's all good and well saying that, but actually, if you had an idea of the psychology of human experience and trauma and attachment, then perhaps you wouldn't be accepting that theory as particularly helpful for a lot of people. You've got to consider so many different variables and consider the true complexity at play and the context from which within people's difficulties have emerged to fully appreciate how difficult it is to break out of a lot of these unhelpful habits that, may I add, you are probably aware that you do and that you have, and you are probably frustrated with yourself because you can notice that you're in these patterns of things that are not serving you and you want to change. And then when you're reading Instagram or you're listening to podcasts and things and you're hearing, oh, you just need to do this, it's just, I just want you to know that if you have tried to just do this and just say no and full stop and it's a full sentence and all that jazz, you might get it, but you might not feel able to implement it. And I want you to know that that is not your fault. You are not failing if you're unable to implement all this stuff that you're reading about online or you're seeing or you're hearing. And this episode, got off my soapbox now. This episode is really just to talk a little bit more, in particular about the let them theory by Mel Robbins. And full disclaimer here, I've followed her for a while and had her emails, and I love a lot about like her passion and her motivational stuff and what she talks about. And in the true spirit of being genuine and authenticity, I also want to put full disclaimer, I have not read the full breakdown of the let them theory that she's released. I just want to say that this episode is more just using that as an example, but using how I've been, seeing it spouted online by different people, or how I've seen it present in the online space, like the snippets of it that have emerged and what people I've worked with have picked up on, and how it's how it's landed for them and how it's impacted them when they've not been able to just, let them, so to speak. I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure by now you'll know how passionate I am about just wanting you to just embrace every part of you and to just be the person you've always meant to be. And it would be lovely if we could all just let everyone else handle their own shit and it not affect us. But we know, don't we, that it does affect us. And we do feel like we're responsible somehow and we have to get involved and we want to help people feel better. And I'm just going to explore a bit more around why that is for us and why it does feel difficult. So, to start off, I just want to say that I am all about recognizing that other people's inability to manage their own emotions or their reactions or moods and choices are not your responsibility. That is their responsibility. I am all here for that and I am on board with that. It is such a helpful concept, especially for those of us who spent our lives carrying everyone else's emotional luggage around like it's our job, because it's not our job. And it's really powerful to say, that's their stuff, not mine. That's a them thing. It's not a me thing. But as I say, it's not always that simple, is it? Especially not if your nervous system has been trained to think that keeping the peace, complying, suppressing, appeasing, pleasing other people at the expense of your own wants and needs is the way for you to feel safe. If your nervous system has been trained in that way, then it's not just a mindset shift. You might know rationally that you're not responsible for other people and how they're feeling, and it's not your job to solve all their problems for them. You might know that on one level, but your nervous system is not feeling that, it's not believing it. Therefore, you get it, but you don't feel it. Your body doesn't speak fluent self help quotes from Instagram. It speaks in heart rate, in tension, in tight chest, in racing thoughts, shakiness, sweaty palms, and all that. And for anyone with trauma or neurodivergence, rejection sensitivity, or a lifelong fawning pattern, letting people just be and not getting involved, it isn't relaxing and easy to let go of. It can actually feel terrifying because let's be clear, people pleasing isn't about just being nice or too nice. It's not just liking harmony. It's a survival strategy that your body has learned and picked up in order to stay connected, because connection equals safety to your nervous system. And if you are going to disrupt that connection, you are therefore going to disrupt that sense of safety if that is your survival strategy. And for so many women in particular, pleasing and fixing becomes the only way to avoid the rejection, the conflict, or emotional chaos that feels like there's no coming back from. Because think about it, if you grew up in a house where moods shifted all the time, you were really aware of the atmosphere at home, where you had to maybe earn love by being helpful, polite, or good and perfect, then of course your body learned, I don't rock the boat. Because if I rock the boat, I upset someone. And if I upset someone, I no longer feel safe. And maybe it learned that because you actually weren't safe. You had to keep everybody else happy. Or maybe, it felt like as a child, or you were as a child, made to feel like something was your fault. And also, as a child, we derive meaning from the way we are made to feel in an environment, because prefrontal cortex isn't developed enough to have that cognitive ability to actually intellectualize what's going on in a situation. So even if it wasn't an explicit message of, if you rock the boat, you are unsafe, something bad happens to you. You might have grown up with parents who had their own mental health problems and were quite withdrawn at times, or it was inconsistent how much attention you got as a child, or how often your emotional needs, if ever, were met. And from that, you might then take meaning from that about the sort of person you are. It might have felt like, well, I must be a bad person, or I'm not lovable because I'm not getting that love and I'm not getting that reassurance that I need right now. And oh, it must be my fault. You know, it's not necessarily a conscious process, but these messages, they seep in and they stick and they stay with you. And within us, there's that drive, that need, especially as children, to drive towards connection, because connection is the thing that makes us feel safe and warm and like we're okay. And if we don't have that, then we learn strategies to try and get that. And if that means neglecting our own needs, our own wants, and putting that on the back burner in order to really focus on giving the other person what they want and helping them feel okay. Because then, if they're feeling okay, I know I'll feel okay. And that stays with you. So, of course, you're not going to want to rock the boat. And how that might present in everyday life, a little example is perhaps you're on the group chat and you're discussing doing something and you share how you're feeling about this place that everyone else wants to go to. You're not keen on it. Maybe you send a message and you can see people have read it, but they don't reply. Your body then starts responding. Maybe your stomach flips, or you start feeling like, oh, panicky. You start overthinking. Did I say too much? Oh God, have they been funny with me? Do they think I'm being funny? Should I send a follow-up? Should I send something funny to lighten the mood? Should I backtrack? Should I seek reassurance from them? And you know, on one level, you don't really need to be apologizing or backtracking, but your body is already into the fawn response. And that is just evidence of that years of conditioning, if you like, that told you you must stay connected at all costs. And this is going to particularly show up for you, I imagine, if you have ADHD and you're so used to masking, scanning, overthinking, being hypervigilant of people's moods. It's how you learn to survive and to be accepted, you know? It was a functional coping strategy at the time it was created, but it's just that your brain, if you like, and your body have not yet realized that actually you no longer need that coping strategy because things are different now and you're an adult, you're not dependent on people for survival. So there's a very good reason why you might struggle with just letting them and chilling. You know, there's a reason you can't just chill. Your nervous system isn't wired to keep you happy, it's wired to keep you safe. That's its priority. It wants to keep you safe. So if letting someone feel their feelings and letting them be in a mood with you or a bit off with you, if that feels like a threat, your system's going to fight that with everything it's got. So even though you get it, you should just be able to leave it, you feel, on one level. On another level, you're feeling like, nah, I need to mend this. I need to work hard on fixing this. So cue over apologizing or over explaining yourself. There's that overwhelming urge. I must smooth things over. It's my responsibility. I've got to make sure everything's okay. And that's what's happening when we talk about the fawn response. When you people please or overfunction because your system is still braced for rejection, and for rejection equals threat. You know, it's not about logic, it's about biology. And sometimes, I suppose, letting them is also about trust, you know? It's not just about rejection or fear of rejection, it's about the trust as well. It's trusting that a relationship can hold a wobble, that you don't need to be the emotional glue, that it's a two-way thing, that you're safe even if someone's disappointed or has a feeling that you can't fix. That trust in a relationship starts with self-trust. Before you can trust anyone else, you need to cultivate that trust within you. Trust in yourself to hold your own needs, to accept all parts of yourself, to hold your boundaries without spiraling into a feeling of shame or guilt. So, what can you do if just let them feels like too much? What is the alternative? And the first thing then is to focus on acknowledging and making sense of the why behind it feeling too much to implement. So, practicing asking yourself things like, when you were growing up, how did people around you deal with conflict or rupture in relationships? Were you at all taught to deal with that? How did people around you repair relationships? Did they repair relationships when things went wrong? When or where were you taught it was your job to handle other people's emotions? Who taught you that? Where did you learn it? When did you learn to scan a room and pick up on everyone's changes in moods or noticing what people are feeling before they've even spoken? When did you learn to jump in to soothe and distract other people from their emotions? When did you learn to make people laugh, to stop someone from getting angry or shutting down or walking away? When did appeasing others become your way to stay connected to them and to stay safe? Because here's the thing, that pattern didn't come from nowhere. It was learned a long time ago. And at that time, it was so effective. It was an ingenious strategy that worked for you, which is why your brain is so amazing. It developed this strategy and it was developed within a context of when it was needed. And it was needed back then. So if you can allow yourself to start considering what that context was, what that environment looked like for you, and how your brain might have picked up on the fact that you need to appease other people at the expense of your own wants and needs a lot of the time in order to stay connected, you can start sort of viewing it a lot differently. And because we're acknowledging here that for a long time it was needed and it worked and it was effective, it helped you get certain needs met as a child and it made sense. Letting go, of course, it now feels risky to just let it go and let them be. And it's not that you're being too dramatic or too sensitive, of course, letting them just be feels risky to your nervous system because your nervous system remembers. It remembers why it developed that strategy. And it's hard for it to forget. And we don't necessarily want it to forget because in some situations it can be helpful, these strategies. It's just we want to learn new strategies, don't we? New patterns, new ways to be, and to teach it that you're not under threat if someone is in a mood with you or is feeling emotional. And the great thing about neuroplasticity is we can teach it new neural pathways. It's just that we have to recognize that to create new neural pathways, we need to consider a lot of more factors than just practicing a certain response. It's much more complex than that. So speaking about that insight that you then have about it, the next step is practicing observing yourself when these old patterns and habits emerge. Who, what, where, and when do you fall into the habit of feeling responsible for others? What are the themes? What are the patterns? When does their discomfort feel like your job to fix? Because this helps you see how your patterns are playing out right now. It shows you which situations feel more difficult than others and where it's going to be harder to step back or where the idea of letting them feels impossible. And then once you've got more familiar with that, you'll be better placed then to notice that urge that you get to intervene and to smooth things over and to help people feel better when it's not your responsibility. So when you catch yourself going into fix it mode, practice a pause. You don't have to stop the behavior completely yet. Firstly, just focus on noticing it and pausing. And then that moment of awareness will help create space for you. And space equals choice. So you might even say to yourself, oh, I'm noticing I've got the urge to fix things here. Or something I always say to clients and they smile, isn't that interesting? I really want to make this better, even though deep down I know it's not actually my responsibility. I wonder what that's about. And that pause and that curiosity and awareness, you can start expanding that then and noticing more and more. And then you'll be better placed to notice when you feel or start feeling able to implement little changes. And whilst you're pausing, you can notice and tune into how your body's feeling. How is your nervous system responding to this? And you can maybe practice slowing down your breathing in that moment, just inhaling for 4 and exhaling for 6. And That longer exhale helps activate your parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the part that tells your body you're safe, you're okay, you can relax, you don't have to perform, you're all right. So it's not just breathing for the sake of it, it's actually helping regulate your nervous system in that moment. And if those old habits emerge, as they will probably because we're only human, aren't we? Do not shame yourself if you can help it. Don't attack yourself for doing something that has been amazing for you in the past. It's something you've done to survive certain things. And I know even if survive feels or sounds dramatic to you, just think of it. These habits emerged at a time where they were functional for you and they were needed and they helped you get what you needed at that time. So they're not something that should be shamed. They're something that should pique your curiosity and compassion in a way. Like, how amazing that you were able to develop such an amazing strategy when it was needed at the time. And it's just reminding yourself that you don't quite need it now. So maybe like approaching it more with curiosity and compassion, noticing and saying to yourself, oh, there's that old pattern again. It makes sense. I learned that at the time to stay safe and to feel okay. I wonder what it is that's making me feel unsafe right now about this situation. And that type of self talk will help you create space for healing and not just habit breaking. And then you might be better placed to start trying tiny let thems. And I mean tiny. So, what we define as tiny will be defined by your unique nervous system, your lived experiences, your conditioning, all those things, or your biology, your limiting beliefs. And once you've gained clarity around your patterns and what's driving them, you can see you'll be in a better position to find that first step. And it might look like letting someone wait a little bit longer before you step in and reply, or letting a friend misunderstand you without jumping in to over explain straight away, just delaying it a bit. Or it might letting your partner be in a mood and grumpy without rushing in to, fix their mood somehow or make sure that it's not you that's upset them. These are like nervous system reps, if you like, little moments of practice that build your capacity and increase your tolerance to not step in and fix straight away, to not overfunction, to not make yourself responsible for things that aren't yours. Because let's be honest, you can't just outthink trauma. You can't mindset your way out of all your limiting beliefs or your attachment wounds, but you can rewire your nervous system. You can build new, safer internal patterns, form new neural pathways when you feel safe to do so through therapeutic support, through evidence based tools and techniques, and embodied healing practices. This is exactly why I incorporate more than just like cognitive behavioral therapy into my approach, because it's not just about changing how you think, it's changing how you feel. And that's why I created the Unlock method, because it's a framework I developed to help you not just think differently, but to actually feel safe enough to show up differently. It's incorporating like a top down approach with a bottom up approach. So you are diving deeper into what's underlying your difficulty so you can unlock that clarity, implement change, and then unlock freedom from the need to please and appease at the expense of your own wants and needs. And I'm going to end my episode there. I hope it has been insightful for you. And if let them theory has really worked for you and you've had like a really positive experience from it, I'm really glad for you. Like, I do want you to find the things that are helpful for you. I just hope that this helps people who have maybe tried it and not found it very effective, or have felt like when they were reading about it or listening about it or hearing about it, maybe it felt like stuff they already knew, but just did not feel able to implement. And I just want this episode to be for you, if that is you, to know that it's not your fault and that it's not a failure. It's just that we are all unique in our own experiences, and we need to consider so many different factors and variables that come into play when we're trying to address really deep rooted patterns and habits that we have and understand it from yeah, from a psychological basis, really, and biological as well, and social. And I could go on, but I won't. Anyway, let me know what you think of this episode. I hope I've not upset too many people. Past people pleaser in me is getting activated by doing this episode, but I just really felt like I wanted to say something about it. So I did, practicing what I preach. But until next time, I will see you soon. Hi, I'm adding this bit into the episode, and it's because I recorded this episode about Mel Robbins' Let Them theory before I was aware of the controversy around it in terms of who the originator of Let Them and the principles of the Let Them theory was. And someone on Instagram, Michelle, who goes by Colour Confidence on Instagram, an amazing stylist, and does colour analysis and everything. So side note, check her out. But she shared with me an article about it all, about Cassie Phillips being a writer who wrote about the principles of Let Them before Mel Robbins got hold of it, apparently. And yeah, all the controversy around that. So I just wanted to put this in to say that, yeah, if you're not aware of it, give it a Google, make your own mind up about it all. But yeah, I didn't realise about any of that when I was actually recording this episode.